G'day guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got an exciting video. I'm going to be comparing the GC2 to the Garmin R10 again using the Garmin Golf app. However, today instead of using RCT golf balls, I'm just going to use regular standard Pro V1s. What we noticed from the last test is the Garmin was coming up short using the RCT golf balls. The spin was accurate, but the actual carry distance in some instances was quite short. So pretty much through the bag, the Garmin with using the RCT golf ball on the Garmin Golf app was coming up about 8 to 10 yards short of the GC2. So today I'm going to test a regular Pro V and see if the Garmin algorithm, with the estimated spin being lower in my case than the calculated spin, see if that estimated spin makes up for it and gives us accurate carry distances. For those of you who've seen the first 3 videos, you'll know what's going on. If you haven't seen those, make sure to check those out. So I'm going to be doing a couple of chip shots where I look to carry at about 6 to 10 yards. Then I'll be moving on to a pitch shot where I'm aiming to carry at about 60 yards. From there, I'll hit pitching wedge, 7-iron, 4-iron, and then driver. The Garmin at the moment is on the 4.30 update. That's the most recent update for the Garmin. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, so we're out here at the range and we're just going to start with our chip shots. So like I said, looking to carry these 6 to 10 yards. Okay, so on the Foresight, we had 9.5 yards carry, we had 3,000 RPM. It took off a little bit to the right. It did take off right in the actual room, so that was accurate. On the Garmin, we had 8 yards carry, and we had 3,500 RPM, and it took off a little bit to the right. So the Garmin read that correctly. Let's just have a look at the launch angle. And that came off 2.6 degrees to the right. The Foresight had that 2.1 degrees to the right. All right, so that one we had 7 yards carry and we had 2,600 RPM on the Foresight. On the Garmin, we had 6 yards carry and we had 3,500 RPM. All right, we'll do one more chip. Okay, so that one we had 9 yards carry with 2,700 RPM on the Foresight. On the Garmin, we had 9 yards carry, 3,700 RPM. Spin, the estimated spin on these shots looks like it's a little higher on the Garmin, just using regular Pro V1s. Carry distance seemed to be in the ballpark, good enough. In terms of launch angle, both of them represented the same launch angle. So yeah, that one there, 2.6 degrees right on the Garmin. We had 1.2 degrees right on the Foresight. So both pretty accurate at that range. All right, let's move on to our 60-yard shot. Okay, so now we're back at 60 yards. So I'm gonna look to carry these 60 yards on the dot. This is where it'll start to get interesting. Okay, so on the Foresight, we had 64 yards carry with 7,900 or 8,000 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 63 yards carry with 6,100 RPM. That's our first look at pitching, but in terms of carry distance, pretty much identical. In terms of spin, you can see that the estimated spin on the Garmin is down quite a lot. We're almost talking, 2,000 RPM or 1,800 RPM. So spin's a little down, but in terms of carry distance, quite accurate. All right, a little bit long on that one. We had 67 yards carry on the Foresight with 8,600 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 66 yards carry with 6,100 RPM. What's interesting is the spin's down, but like I thought, the carry distance itself is actually quite close to what we're seeing from the Foresight. Okay, let's hit one more pitch shot. Okay, so we had 58 or 59 yards almost on the Foresight with 9,000 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 57 with just under 6,000 RPM. Let's have a look at launch direction and spin axis, because that'll be quite interesting. Launch direction on the Foresight was 0.9 to the right. On the Garmin, the launch direction was 1.9 to the right. So pretty good. They both had it going right at the start. In terms of spin axis, the Foresight had that pretty much going dead straight. And on the Garmin, we actually had a fade. So it was a 203 RPM to the right. So it was a bit more of a fade. So it was a bit more of a left to right shot on the Garmin. Okay, let's move up to pitching wedge. Pitching wedge for me is generally 136 carry on a good strike. All right, little pull. Not the best strike, if I'm honest. All right, we had 137 for the carry on the Foresight with 8,200 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 132 carry with 7,400 RPM. So slightly down on the Garmin. 5 yards carry difference there between the Garmin and the Foresight. Let's have a look at the other metrics. So the Foresight had that taken off slightly left. It felt like it came off slightly left. Let's have a look at the Garmin. So the launch direction on the Garmin had it going slightly right. In terms of spin axis, the Foresight had that with a draw, and on the Garmin we had the tiniest of fades, tiniest of draws, sorry. So it was pretty much dead straight on the Garmin. So yeah, dead straight on the Garmin versus a draw on the Foresight. Okay, that felt like it was taken off right. So let's have a look. We had 132 yards carry on the Foresight with 9,200 RPM, 130 yards carry on the Garmin with 77 or 7,800 RPM. So again, we're seeing estimated spin here because I'm using a regular Pro V1. In terms of carry distance, only a couple of yards in at that time. So pretty close, closer than when we were using an RCT ball. However, the spin number is significantly out. Let's have a look at the actual shot shape. So the Foresight had that taking off 2.6 to the right. The Garmin had that taking off 3.9 to the right. In terms of shot shape, the Foresight had that drawing back to the target, and the Garmin had it slightly fading, pretty much going dead straight. So yeah, slight discrepancy in the ball flight there. The Foresight had that coming back, where the Garmin had it right and pretty much staying right. Okay, much better swing for me there. That one felt like a decent swing. So 136 yards carry on the number, on the dot, with 9,000 RPM. On the Garmin, on the Foresight, and then on the Garmin we had 132 yards carry with 7,600 RPM. We're losing 1,500 RPM, so the spin is significantly out because it's been estimated. However, carry distance, we were 4 yards off there with the Garmin, so pretty good, not too far off. Certainly a lot better for carry distance than we saw from the RCT golf ball. All right, let's just hit one more pitching wedge. Okay, 139, almost 140 yards carry on the Foresight with 8,300 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 137 yards carry with 7,400 RPM. Pretty good there in terms of carry distance. There's only a couple of yards in that. In terms of launch direction and shot shape, the Foresight had that taking off pretty much dead straight with a draw. The Garmin had that taking off slightly right with a slight draw. So pretty good in terms of shot shape there. The Foresight did have more of a draw than the Garmin had. And we're talking about 637 spin or revolutions to the left versus 148. Okay, let's move on to 7-iron now. So 7-iron for me, anywhere from 170 to 175 yards carry. Really good strike there. Really happy with that swing. So we had 174 yards carry with 6,500 RPM on the Foresight. Pretty much a perfect 7-iron for me. And then on the Garmin, we had 176 yards with 4,700 RPM. So similar story. Spin is way down. However, looking at the carry distance, it's actually pretty close. There's only 2 yards difference in that. and the Garmin had that 2 yards actually longer than the Foresight. So pretty interesting. Let's look at the metrics. So on the Foresight, it had it taking off 0.1 of a degree left with a baby fade. So a very, very slight fade. On the Garmin, it had it taking off 0.2 to the right. So slightly different, but both of them are pretty much dead straight. You're talking about 0.2 of a degree. And then it had a slight draw, slightly different shot shape than the Foresight. However, both pretty good there. That was quite a close shot between the two. Okay, another good strike there. So we had 175 yards carry with 6,600 RPM on the Foresight. On the Garmin, we had 177 yards carry with 4,900 RPM. Again, both look quite good. Carry distance, there's only a couple of yards in it, which is good. And let's look at the other metrics. So the Foresight had that taking off 1.4 degrees to the right with a slight draw, a very, very slight draw. Let's look at the Garmin. The Garmin had that taking off 1.3 to the right, so pretty much identical, and going dead straight. So it had 3 revolutions of right spin, so dead straight. So the Garmin just didn't pick up on that very, very, very slight draw. But in terms of accuracy there, both units, except the spin obviously, because it's using the estimated spin, both units were pretty much identical there. Okay, not the best strike there. Was kind of low in the face out the heel. In terms of metrics, we had 169 yards carry on the Foresight with 6,500 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 168 yards carry with 5,200 RPM. Carry distance, pretty much spot on between the two. Shot shape, let's have a look at that. So the Foresight had that taking off 1.5 degrees to the right and fading. The Garmin had that taking off 0.5 of a degree to the right with a very slight draw. So a little bit of a discrepancy there in shot shape. I'm just wondering if the heel strike potentially caused more of a fade that the Foresight picked up on that the Garmin didn't. But in terms of carry distance, we're a lot closer so far using the regular Pro V than the RCT. Okay, let's move on to 4-iron. All right, a little bit out the low of the face, a little bit out the bottom of the face there, but we had 205 yards carry with the Foresight with 4,200 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 203 yards carry with 43, almost 4,400 RPM. Spin now is getting quite close with the 4-iron, so that's good. Spin numbers are really good with the estimated spin. Carry distance, pretty much spot on. Let's look at shot shape because that looks quite similar. So the Foresight had it taking off 1.2 degrees to the right with a draw. Let's look at the Garmin. The Garmin had it taking off 0.5 of a degree to the right with a draw. So that shot there was pretty much identical between the two units. Okay. We had 206 yards carry on the Foresight with 4,700 RPM. Let's look at the Garmin. We had 203 yards carry with 42, almost 4,300 RPM. Spin is a little bit higher with the Foresight. However, they're both pretty close. Let's look at shot shape. So the Foresight had that taking off 1.3 degrees to the right and going dead straight. The Garmin had that taking off 1 degree to the right with a baby draw. So both pretty accurate there in terms of carry distance, spin, and shot shape. So both very, very close. Okay, not the best strike, but we had 203 yards carry on the Foresight with 4,100 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 194 yards carry with 4,400 RPM. So that is the first shot where we've seen a significant difference in carry distance. Let's have a look at the other metrics. So the Foresight had that taking off 1.3 degrees to the right with a draw, and the Garmin had that taking off 0.5 degrees left with a draw. So shot shape was correct, launch direction was slightly off. You got to remember both these units allow up to a degree error with their launch direction. So yeah, that one was interesting. Carry distance we saw, we lost what, nine yards? So quite a significant difference in carry distance. Okay. We had 206 yards carry with the Foresight, 4,400 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 199 yards carry, 4,300 RPM. Now that the spin has started to match, we've started to see that discrepancy in carry distance again. On those last two swings, the spin has matched pretty good, but the carry distance has dropped off now. Let's have a look at the other metrics. The Foresight had that 0.5 of a degree left with a slight draw. The Garmin had that 0.8 of a degree left with a slight draw. So in terms of shot shape, very accurate. The only discrepancy we're seeing now is the carry distance. And that's only since we've gone to the 4-iron when the spin has actually started to match. Okay guys, let's now move on to driver. Okay, we had 176 yards carry with the Foresight with 2,300 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 274 yards carry with 2,700 RPM. So in terms of carry distance, they're actually quite similar. That's actually really close. Let's have a look at shot shape. We had, on the Foresight, it started 0.3 to the left, 0.3 of a degree with a draw. On the Garmin, it started 0.5 of a degree left with a draw. So very similar in terms of carry distance, shot shape, and spin axis. All right, that was Healy, so we might see the gear effects come into play here. So we had 270 yards carry with 2,800 RPM, struck it out the heel, the spin kicked up. On the Garmin, we had 262 yards carry with almost 2,800 RPM. So that's funny, the estimated spin there on the Garmin actually matched pretty much what it was. Let's have a look at shot shape. So the Foresight had that taking off 0.7 of a degree left with a fade. Mostly the fade was due to that heel strike. And the Garmin had that taking off 0.3 of a degree to the right with a draw. So it obviously took the closed face from the impact of the ball as face angle, and then it's got a draw from that. But overall, those shots there were pretty close. It's just the gear effect again coming into play. Photometric based system is going to be able to read that. Radar unit really struggles. Even the TrackMan's not going to be able to get that gear effect unless you have the perfect lighting and all the other requirements for it to be able to see where the ball was struck on the face. Okay, we had 277 yards carry with 2,200 RPM on the Foresight. We had 261 yards carry with 2,800 RPM on the Garmin. I mean, if I was to say where that impacted, I would say ever so slightly out the heel, again causing that slight gear effect. I only missed it slightly out the heel though. Let's have a look at shot shape. So on the Foresight, it took off 0.6 of a degree left and had the slightest of fades. On the Garmin, we had 0.9 to the left, so very similar. Just the shot shape we're seeing there of 535 spin to the left, so quite a big draw versus the slight fade from the Foresight. Again, probably coming from that gear effect. Okay, not a good swing there. Definitely came off the toe, so it was going to have a draw shape to it. Let's have a look at the data. So we had 270 yards carry on the Foresight with 1500 RPM. On the Garmin, we had 270 yards carry with 2900 RPM. So spin is obviously the massive discrepancy there. It wasn't a good swing. I definitely hit it high off the toe, so the ball's going to be like knuckly. It's going to have no spin. So the ball flight shown by the Foresight was accurate to how I felt. Let's have a look at the shot shape. The Foresight had that taking off 0.2 of a degree to the right with a draw, and the Garmin had that, let's have a look, it had 0.4 of a degree to the left with a draw. So both very accurate in terms of shot shape. Pretty happy with that one overall. I mean, you look at the carry distance, very similar. The spin is the big discrepancy, but in terms of shot shape and carry distance, they were both very accurate on that shot. Okay, that was a better swing there. We had 281 yards carry with 2200 RPM on the Foresight. We had 265 yards carry with 2900 RPM on the Garmin. So spin is slightly up, the estimated spin on the Garmin. Carry distance is down. Let's have a look at shot shape. So the Foresight had that taking off slightly right with a draw, 2.3 degrees right with a baby draw. The Garmin had that taking off 0.9 of a degree to the right with a baby draw. So both in terms of shot shape, extremely accurate. In terms of carry distance, slightly shorter on the Garmin. Okay. That one there, we had 179 yards carry with 2300 RPM on the Foresight. On the Garmin, we had 267 yards carry with 2800 RPM. Again, estimated spin has put it a lot higher than what it was. Carry distance, therefore, is down. Let's have a look at shot shape. So the Foresight had that taking off 1.6 degrees to the right with a baby draw. The Garmin had that taking off 1.4 degrees to the right. So that was very accurate in the launch angle. In terms of shot shape, the Garmin had that going dead straight. Okay, so let's have a look at that. We had 281 yards carry with 2200 RPM on the Foresight. We had 273 yards carry with 2900 RPM on the Garmin. In terms of shot shape, the Foresight had that taking off 1.5 degrees to the right with a draw. The Garmin had that taking off 2.1 degrees right with a fade. So shot shape, slight discrepancy on that one. In terms of carry, again, that higher spin from the Garmin, estimating the spin, we've had a slight drop in distance. Okay guys, so that was regular Pro V1, Garmin R10 versus the Foresight GC2. Overall, quite happy with what I saw with the regular Pro V1 and the Garmin R10. In terms of carry distance, it was absolutely fantastic until we got to the 4-iron. And this is where we saw the spins start to match between the calculated spin rate from the Foresight and the estimated spin rate from the Garmin. Up until 4-iron, the estimated spin from the Garmin was lower than the calculated spin from the Foresight. And because of that, the carry distance actually matched up quite well, especially with the 7-iron. They were pretty much spot on. When we got to 4-iron, the spin was matching between both the units. And because of that, we saw distance start to drop off on the Garmin. When we went to driver, it was a similar story. There was, I think, one of them that matched distance quite well, one or two. But overall, when I struck a solid drive, you saw the calculated spin was lower, estimated spin was higher, and as such, there was a big drop off in carry distance when using driver. Okay, so with all that being said, is the regular Pro V better than the RCT? I think at this stage, and this is just a theory, I think that Garmin introduced the RCT ball, but I don't think they updated their carry distance algorithm. So what that means, I think they introduced the RCT to get more accurate spin numbers, which it does. It's fantastic. The spin numbers are pretty much perfect with the RCT ball and the Garmin. However, what I think they've done is they haven't updated that spin rate calculation to affect the carry distance. With the lower spin rates, the estimated spin rates out of the Garmin, with those irons, I was seeing a really good carry distance out of the unit. When I used the RCT ball, like you saw in the other test, we were seeing a drop off of 8 yards. What that says to me is that Garmin just needs to have a look at spin rates and how it affects carry distance and just adjust it slightly. When we look at the Awesome Golf app, they've done this. It's perfect for carry distance. I think Garmin just needs to slightly tweak their algorithm in terms of carry distance when using an RCT ball or when you're getting correct spin. So what I would tell someone if they're using the Garmin app right now to get accurate distances, I would say use a regular golf ball all the way through the bag until you get to your woods. And then when you get to your woods, use an RCT ball or use a metallic dot on your ball. And I think at this point in time, that's the most accurate distances you're gonna get while using the Garmin app. All right, guys, I hope that helped. Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, let me know. If you got any questions, leave them in the comment section and I will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.